Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This has turned into a bit of a vlog video actually. It was going to be a full repair here, but I've lost the footage. I formatted my SD card by accident, so I've lost the first half of this. But I thought it was worth sharing anyway, so it's going to go down as a vlog type thing. As you can see, I bought a PS2 here. It's the fat one. You can see broken plastic. It was smashed to pieces. You can see where I tried to epoxy it yesterday. There was lots of small pieces here. This is well and truly broken. Now, because I'm not happy with the way that this has gone back together here, I've still got some more pieces to stick into the gaps and things. It just looks a mess. I mean, it might look okay from the front when the lid's on, but I searched on eBay and found a replacement shell, so I'm going to swap out the shell, so I'll show you that later on. Hopefully it'll fit. It's a subtly different revision. I think this is a 300000, and the one I've ordered is a 300009. So I'm not sure if the mountings and things are going to be the same. The case looks the same shape, but anyway. So it wasn't reading discs. Absolutely filthy. I've cleaned a lot of the dirt out of this, and I did have the board completely disassembled yesterday. Just to turn this over, careful not to lose the fan. So you can see, I'll show you some of the things just briefly. If you remove the 4 screws here, the power supply unit comes off. It's on a little push fit thing, as you can see down here, a bit like you got the Dreamcast and some of the Saturns actually. You know, you've got 4 pins that push into a connector. You can't disconnect the fan until you've got rid of that. The connector is like well and truly tucked in under there, which is a bit crazy because it means you've got to have the fan swinging around until you've got the power supply out. And then once these 2 screws are out, this comes off, and there's loads of these, can you see them here, little screws. There's about 7 of those little screws, and then the shielding from the top side here will separate from the bottom side over here. Well, this is the top side, I guess, so yeah, top and bottom shields come off at that point. And you can see here there was lots of corrosion. These were absolutely red with rust all around here, and it had gone all onto the edge of the PCB all the way around. So all I did is just clean up, clean off the corrosion there, clean the board. There's some thermal pads underneath these heat sinks that join with the chips, and I just wiped the tops of the chips with IPA so they were super clean. Cleaned the surface of that rubber heat spreader thing with a bit of IPA, so that was super clean. And then I've just reassembled it, so you've not missed much. This fan was absolutely caked in dirt. I mean, it really was. The cotton buds were absolutely black. I'm a bit annoyed that I lost the footage, but not much to show you. Now, I've not got as far as going through the drive. We're going to do that in a minute. That's the key, because it wasn't working. You can see there, that should be a clue as to how dirty the fan was. It was really, really bad. I briefly cleaned up that a little bit, but you can still see it's a bit dirty. There's still a bit of corrosion to treat on there, but we'll strip that down in a sec, and I'll show you the inside of that. So I did, like I said, epoxy some of this. You know, it might be okay just for testing with this shell once we reassemble it in a minute, but towards the end of this video here, I will completely, swap out the shell. And on the top side of the shell, the only damage really, I might be able to keep this, if the replacement I've got is not much good, I might just be able to glue the piece back in here, which I've got, and the top shell isn't that bad actually. I think it was just a support pillar over here, which you can see I've epoxied back in, and that seems to have stuck quite well. I'm just not sure whether it's perfectly straight. Might have an issue when I come to get the screw in there. And you know what, it's super easy to disassemble this, so why not show you this while we're here. So yeah, you've got to watch out for the power switch. The power switch slides out that little gap there, and then the power supply comes off. So just be careful, touching underneath this caps here. That's going to hold 330 odd volts in there. The caps look okay. They're an interesting type of cap. They kind of look like a cross between the standard through holes and service mount in terms of the way that the cans are around those, but they look okay. I did inspect for dry solder joints. That's worth doing while you're in here as well, but that looks okay, and it does power up. It just doesn't read discs. So you can see here where the fan connector is. If I just pull this little cage off, yeah, a super small connector there, and I just put a bit of Captain tape there. Originally there was a sticker, and I ripped that off, and it just peeled. It was an awful thing, but I just restuck that down. So we'll just flip that up and back a bit, and we'll just carefully pull this connector out here. There you go. So you can see what I mean about the little screws. Got lots of these little screws here around the board to remove, so I'll remove those. And then on this side, this piece of plastic just comes out here, and we can get access to the screws there. and then hopefully the shielding should come off there. As you can see, I got a bug there actually. It's a good job I did go back inside there. I didn't spot that first time around. So yeah, and then the bottom shielding I think should just lift off here as well actually, if I'm thinking correctly. I don't think I've missed any screws anywhere. Yeah, there we go. It's just, it sticks on here. So yeah, my first point here when I first saw this is, wow, what a nice chip that is. I love the design of that. It's really large, it's got a nice little reflective surface and stuff. That's the Emotion engine there. It's amazing the hype that went behind the PS2 when it came out, actually, the whole Emotion engine thing, you know. When you hear a phrase like that, you start to imagine that it's capable of far more than it really is. Do you know what I mean? It's like having the impression that you'd get amazing facial expressions on people, you know, on 3D characters and things like that. I'll perhaps get the IPA on there again and clean those off. Can you see there's a little bit of a like a fingerprint type surface on there? It's just where it's married up with that, but all I've done is, let's say, it's just clean all this up. And I did point out the first time around, I pointed out again, CR2032 there, I think it might be a bit smaller than a 2032 actually. It looks a bit small, but it's similar anyway, and it's got the PS logo on there, PlayStation logo, very interesting. These down here I think are RAM chips, BGA mounted, both of these chips I think. Yeah, they are BGA RAM chip, a nice little Sony chip there, another BGA one. So, but just look how small the assembly is. Now, I did clean up around this area here. You can see where the corrosion was, and I just, you know, treated it with a wire brush and then used a bit of WD-40 just on the edge, because that's all that's been affected here. It's just the very edges. And I guess that's a testament to the design of these. Really, the shielding has kept all the moisture off. There was quite a lot of liquid spilt on this, and you know, you can see where it's gone. It's gone all over the edge, all the way around the thing, even down here. But I've, let's say, cleaned all that up, inspected the board, just a good, you know, inspection around, clean everything up as best as I can. I don't see any faults and things there. Hopefully it'll still work when I reassemble it. So now we've done that, like I say, I'll just wipe these down again and get the shielding back on. So we're getting there now. Just put this isolating piece back in here so that the power supply doesn't short anywhere. When I first went in this, I was a bit horrified at how hard it was actually to get to pieces. It'll be a bit easier now as I'm, you know, doing it in reverse order, showing you, you know, what I learned on the, you know, the way in there, effectively. But I'm quite pleasantly surprised at how well built these are, actually. You know, my first thought was, let's say, oh my god, over-engineered in terms of the shielding and all that sort of stuff. But the shielding's protected it. That's the nice thing. I mean, I guess these have got a really low sort of interference RF noise footprint as a result of that. You know, all this shielding. But they are really nice, actually. Really well made. And I guess it's a testament to the design of the shield and stuff, the impact this suffered. You know, you saw the damage to the case there, and the board was unaffected, and it's probably because of the rigidity of all of this shielding surrounding the whole thing. It's quite nicely protected by the shielding. So something else worth mentioning, similarly to Dreamcast and Sans, before you put the power supply back on, just clean up the four connectors there with some very lightly abrasive sandpaper on each, you know, all four sides of the connections, because they're like square pins, you know, just to make sure you've got a super clean fit. You could get some deoxit or something on there if you don't want to use sandpaper, but I use like really lightly abrasive stuff. It hardly makes a mark on anything, just to make sure that we get a good connection. So with the top bit, like I say, this bit I might keep because it's only just a piece broken out of here. There's a little gap that I could actually fill in with some plastic filler and then just touch it with a tiny bit of black acrylic paint, and you wouldn't be able to tell the damage. You can see this will, if I can just get it the right way around, this should, with a bit of manipulation, you can see that piece should go back in there and it should join up, but you can see where it broke here and there's a piece chipped out. Can you see that? But I could fill that with some, let's say, plastic filler, and then just use a tiny bit of a black acrylic paint, so you wouldn't be able to tell because of the location that's in. So and I super glued that. I tried epoxy on the other bits, but the super glue seems to have worked well on that. It's pretty seamless, really. So I'll just get a bit of super glue on here, and we'll stick this back on here. Yeah, like I say, I can always just touch up this area with a little bit of plastic putty in the gap, and a tiny bit of black acrylic paint, you know, maybe over the bit there, because that's going to leave a bit of a white sort of mark. But at least that's in one piece. You know, the lid, as you can see when it's on the front there, especially when that little gap's filled, you won't be able to tell, so at least the lid is salvageable. it looks pretty good, really. So the next port of call, and the, let's say the main reason why this isn't working, is this drive unit here. So we'll just get these 4 or 5 screws off the, I think it's 4 actually, off the plastic lid here, and then we should be able to see inside the drive. So I think that cover should come off now, hopefully. Yeah, spindle and all. So you can see, this is exactly why it wasn't working, I'm sure. I mean, it may need a new laser, but I doubt it. Good God, this is disgusting, this tray. So we'll get that out. Oh, yeah. And I got some discs with it, I'll show you those in a minute, and they'll work fine, actually. Now, you may be wondering why, where I got this. I got this off eBay, and it arrived damaged. It wasn't damaged before it was sold. It just got damaged in transit. Now, I should have complained, really, but it was a charity. I thought, I can't really grumble, because I think the unit cost me £8, and it was about £5 or £6 shipping. And I must have got 16, £17 worth, roughly, of games with it, and they're all perfect, no scratches or anything. I'll show you those later, let's say. But I think this is all it is. I mean, look at the state, look at the dust in there. So it's just going to be a case of just going around with cotton buds, and paper towel, with IPA, get rid of all the dust out of the plastic part here, off the rail, all the dust off the rails, clean around the optical pickup unit there, a bit of IPA on a cotton bud, clean the laser, I'll show you that in a sec. Clean the spindle, clean the tray and all the plastic work and stuff around there, and lubricate. I'll perhaps get some Mollycott grease onto these rails, actually. See if I can see the gears. There might be some gears somewhere in there. Sometimes you've got to eject the tray to get access to the whole thing, to see the mechanism. It's probably up this side here. But I should be able to clean what I need to be able to clean, as is. So I start with that spindle. It's got muck. It's really mucky and sticky. But this is all I need to do, is just wipe around it here with some IPA. So because there's so much surface area around the tray here, I'm just going to use this paper towel here to start with, to go around the main part of the drive here like this, just with IPA. And we'll, perhaps go over this a couple of times, just to make sure we've got all the dirt off it. It's really filthy. So as you can see, that's made a big difference there, actually, just cleaning around there. We'll just clean the optical pickup. So I'll focus on the laser lens itself to start with. And then we'll just clean around this plastic here, just to make sure we've not got any contaminants there. And we'll give the rails a wipe here, let's say, and I'll get some fresh Mollycott on here in a sec. I'm not sure if we can move that. Yeah, we can actually. We can push that. You've got to be careful. Sometimes you can break teeth off gears if you try and force drive assemblies like that, but these ones move pretty freely, actually. So let's get some fresh Mollycott onto these rails. And the thing is, if you move the carriage around carefully, you can slide it around like that. Yeah, as I say, on certain drives, don't just try and push the assembly like that, because you'll damage teeth on gears and things. But on a unit like this, you tend to be able to get away with it on these ones. And I'll remove any excess, because there's going to be quite a lot of excess there. You can see, even when I move the rail around, it's not, distributing with the movement very much. So you can always just wipe that down a bit like that. So we're getting there, just focusing on the front here, just making sure got no dust and dirt and stuff there, because this is, it's pretty filthy actually. Even the fronts, you can see, just the wiping the grooves and things here on the front, we're getting lots of dirt. Yeah, it gets everywhere, it just gets into all the little nooks and crannies. So there we go, looking a lot cleaner, I think you'll agree. So there we go, that's our drive cleaned up. So strictly speaking, the easiest way to wash these is in the sink actually. I might just get this into the sink if this doesn't do the job. I mean, look at the colour of that, that's what the fan was like, it was just absolutely caked. But you see it goes into the little slots and things, being the little gaps there, which is why I may just put this into the sink. what I'll probably do is wait for the remainder of the case to arrive before I do that. In the first instance, just give it a wipe this way. So I think whilst we wait for the case, I'll just loosely reassemble this, and we'll just see whether the drive's working or not after having cleaned the system up. So I've got the controller ports back on there, and I can perhaps show you that flat flex when I come to put the lid back on properly later. So the hard bit, actually, can you just about see down here, can you see the little connectors, so you can get the camera at the right angle? You can just about see, yeah, this is where the flat flex goes into, there's 3 of them. And the way to do this is connect the ribbon at the back here to the optical pickup on the drive first, there, and then you've got these 3 connectors which marry up with the ones down the sides here. Actually, it's really fiddly to do. So we'll do the laser unit first. Pull the carriage right down here, and you just pull the little flaps down like that on this particular one, and then the ribbon should just slide in. So yeah, super fiddly to do this. I might have to do this off camera. So the best way to do this is with the chassis outside of the case. Actually, if I just show you, you can just about see down here, you can see the connectors where the ribbons need to go. So with this one here, you lift the flap up there, and then it's just a case of pushing it in as far as it'll go, like that. Hold it in and pull the flap down, and then just tuck the ribbon down the cavity there as you slide the unit over into position, like that. And with this bit, you're going to need the skills of a ninja and the patience of a saint. I don't know what the hell Sony were thinking about with this. You've got to try and get this little ribbon, as you can see, into, can you see that little gap there on the thumb is? In there, at the same time as holding the drive in the right place, holding the case in the right place, trying to get some sort of meaningful hole on that and get it lined in straight. It's near impossible. Well, there's some serious swearing going on off camera while I connected that ribbon there. That is a son of a... So anyway, we're all connected up. You can see we've got the red, you can't actually, you can just about see the red access light, power light here. So I'll just point you the screen and we'll switch it on. And yeah, it's another fingers and toes crossed, because these things are pretty delicate and very difficult to take to pieces and put back together. That's a good sign. It's not exploded or anything. Let's try and eject the disc. Sweet, so that's worked okay. Put the disc in and we'll close it. I'll just plug a controller in to port 1. Oh, it's working, I think. Oh yes, I think that's working. Slightly better angle there. There's a lot of light reflection there, sorry. But let's just see whether the game starts. I'll see if we can start it, press X or something will start. Yeah, before it was completely dead, it wouldn't read a disc at all. It's like there wasn't even a disc in there. So it must have just been dirt. I suspected as much when I saw how dirty it was. It's just annoying I lost the first part of this video, because you'd have been horrified at how much dust was actually around the outside of the unit. And you know, as I got inside the case there, it was just caked full of fluff and dust. I guess it's not that hard to swap the laser out one of these. I mean, the drive looks fairly easy to disassemble. I have worked on a few of these ones, actually, the fat models in the past, and swapped the lasers out. So, yeah, I vaguely remember it being fairly straightforward, but there's quite a lot of different laser revisions as far as I remember. I think they're subtly different. You know, some of the drives are different between the revisions, even, you know, the same, you know, fat model. That seems to be working alright. Let's just turn it up a touch. Skip the intro, just go straight into the game. Sweet. So this is one of those moments that I want to share with you, learn from my absolutely ridiculous mistakes bits. I'll take the lid off. I'll show you what I did. So it was working perfectly, as I showed a few minutes ago, and the spindle here was a little bit noisy, so I put a tiny little bit of oil just there, just a little dot. That's fine, you can do that, no problems. And then I decided, well, I really need to get into the motor, and the motor's kind of like surface mounted. You're not really going to be able to see, but it's kind of on the PCB. It's really short, low profile. So I tried to get a little bit of oil in there. That was the most ridiculous thing I could have possibly tried to do, because a single drop, and it went in there fine, and I rotated it, reassembled it all, and you can imagine what's going to happen when you stick a disc in. The oil is going to splatter out all over the disc and all over the lens and everything, and that's exactly what happened. The disc was... I'm kind of throwing the disc around. It did work, it probably won't in a minute. The disc was covered in oil. I said to clean the oil off. And at that point, I tried reassembling the unit here, and it just stopped reading discs completely. What was happening is the disc was spinning up, and then I could hear like the head going like moving quite a bit, like it was struggling to read. I thought, oh god, I've got oil into the optical part here, not necessarily on the lens because I cleaned that, still doing the same. I thought it's gone into one of the pickups. There must be one for the CD, one for the DVD, I think, on either side. So I spent I kid you not, the last 2 hours cleaning this laser. I've had it off there twice. I filled this cap full of IPA and soaked the whole optical unit, and that's a good tip. You know, you get one of these and it's as dirty as this one, and it doesn't seem to be working. That might be an idea. You might actually get some life out of it. And then I've blown the IPA off with a hot air dryer a number of times to make sure it's totally dry, and shook it and shook it and shook it to make sure there's no IPA or oil residue still inside the unit there. And after ages, like I say, I gave up and thought, I've destroyed it. You know, I'm just a complete idiot. I've just, destroyed a completely good working laser by getting oil into it. So I went and ordered a couple off eBay from China. Those are yet to arrive. They'll be a week or two at least. In the meantime, I thought, well, let's just have one last go. So I took it off, submerged it in IPA again, cleaned it again. Didn't make a difference. And at that point, I noticed the little ribbon down here, was not connected. I think that's for some of the coils. It might be the feedback actually, the actual pickup off the unit. I thought, it can't be that. Seriously, it can't be that. So I've reconnected that, I powered it up, and it works again. So there was nothing actually wrong. The oil didn't get into the optical bit. It just went all over the disc. This has been submerged and cleaned thoroughly 3 times. It's had 2 hours of work cleaning it. It couldn't be any cleaner, and there's nothing wrong with it. So, which I'll show you now. We'll get the disc back in again, and I'll show you. It is now, thankfully, still working. So I got the top of the drive back on, cleaned my disc up, let's put the disc in, and hopefully you will see that it should pick that up fairly quickly actually. There we go. Phew. So the replacement shell arrived. I'll just pick the camera up and just show you around it. If you compare to the original one, bear in mind the shell's not been cleaned up yet, so we've still got mucky marks and things. There's a couple of hairs, but I think there's only a very light surface dirt on there actually. And if I just turn this around, it's just loosely just hanging together at the moment here. We did have that damage there. I think I can live with that. So what I might do initially is just swap the bases over, because this one's got some marks here. I'll clean this up first in the sink. We'll see what it looks like. If it looks okay, if I get rid of those, if the scratches come off, but you can see the back there, there's some of the back there, those are actual scratches. They're not going to come off, whereas there's very few on the original one. But yeah, we'll clean this up anyway. We'll just see what it looks like, because I might just swap over to the entire thing. But you can see again, it's very, very dirty. It's nice. It's still got the the reset and power switch and stuff there with the ribbon. It looks okay as well. That's useful for a spare. Again, it's got a fan. That's not quite as dirty as the original one. But again, it's a spare. It's nice. It's free. We've got a ribbon here for the optical pickup. It's got a little bit of a crease there, but actually I think that's probably okay. I suspect someone's just took the board out of this either for a spare or for whatever reason, I don't know. And it's got the control PCB again, and it's dirty. I've got no reason to suggest there would be a problem with that. It looks okay, the ribbon looks alright, I don't see any damage, so that's actually useful as a spare. I'll keep that. And the nice thing is it came with a bag of screws. So like, I was missing, I think, one of the underside rubber feet, you know, those little plastic things here, you know, the covers for the screws. So I've got a full set of those now. So we'll take the fan out and I'll clean up the top and bottom of this new shell here, and we'll just see what it looks like and work out whether I'm going to swap over the top as well or not. There we go, all washed. Let's dry them off and see what they look like. On the bottom part, it's a no-brainer. We would definitely swap this bit out. You know, there's no serial number on here. I mean, the bottom's a little bit scratched, but you don't see the underside anyway. And the point to note here, this is going to need sticking down on this side here, just where it overhangs. Otherwise it's going to come off that. It's like a little piece of netting that goes over the vent there. But it's a no-brainer swapping out that bit, because that's the bit that's absolutely smashed to smithereens on the original. But with regards to the case, you know, the top part of the case here, the main thing is, I mean, you can see the scratches at the back here, but by the time it's had some back to black on it, it should look pretty good. It's this here, and these two cable scratches, and there's a couple up here. I might just try and see if those will come off with a bit of plastic cleaner or something. I don't hold high hopes. IPA might work. I might give that a try. And again, it's on the front here. Can you see these little white marks? So whilst the front's pretty good, it's not got this bit broken here. The top is a lot worse, you know. I mean, you bear in mind this other one's not been cleaned up. These, yeah, you can argue those are scratches, but I think that's just dirt actually. I don't really see any scratches on this. It's just dirt, as you can see, just mucky marks. Yeah, so not decided on the top shell yet. You can see, you know, that mark there is still pretty visible. I've gone over this with a plastic cleaner. It tends to dry the plastic out. You can see it looks a bit patchy in places. You need to get some silicone back on there. So as you get some of this back to black on, just give that a wipe down. I mean, a lot of it comes off over a period of time. It disappears. I don't know where it goes. It seems to just disappear, that silicone stuff. But yeah, it can make a difference, certainly on a black plastic like this. But you can still see the scratches and things visibly, you know, on the back there. We've still got that mark there, although it's, you know, it's almost come off. So I don't know. I'll put this shell to the side for the moment. It's not too bad. I could live with it like that. But I suspect the other one might come up a little bit cleaner actually. So I think you'll agree, actually, the original lid, after it's been cleaned up, looks pretty bloody good actually. You know, you've got a little mark here, a couple of little marks, and obviously we've got this little dent here, you know, where the plastic broke. But from a distance, that's why I like to do the distance test of a foot or so. That's all I'm interested in really, is anything that really stands out, and there isn't actually. That looks pretty good. Whereas, conversely, if I show you this one, can you see the difference? It's significantly worn. You know, you've got marks and scratches and blemishes and things. So despite the fact that this one's got a perfect front here, I actually prefer that one. And at the end of the day, it's a bit of character. I broke my nose recently, and in fact I had surgery yesterday. Why not leave just a little bit of a memory there as to what's happened to this? It's ever so subtle. I'm not even going to fill that in, I don't think. It just tells a bit of the tale, but actually it looks pretty good. It will be brilliant, I think, once get it all fully assembled. So what I'm going to do next is transplant the innards there into here, into this new front piece. It looks pretty good. I think I'll just trim a bit of capstan tape down to stick the edge, you know, the overhang there, just on the very edge, just a little bit. I mean, you could use insulation tape or sellotape, but I've got the capstan tape here. Kapton tape, not capstan tape. I don't know where I get the extra S from. It should look pretty good, I think, inside there. So I'll clean this button assembly up here. Oh, look at that, that's horrible. Actually, I didn't realise how bad that was. Yeah, we'll clean the buttons up with a bit of IPA, I think. And one thing I've learnt through taking this thing apart and putting it back together a number of times is the easiest thing to do is to connect up all your flat flexes and things outside of the main part of the chassis, you know, sort of disconnect, pull everything out, pull the whole lot out here. If you pull the cap off the back there, that makes it easier because you can get your hand in the bay there and just lift the whole thing out. Just be careful with your control ribbon thing here because you could damage the ribbon. But you'll see now that in terms of connecting that little the flat flexes here, it's super easy. So this is the way I would do it. Don't mess around trying to disconnect and reconnect these whilst it's in the plastic, you know, the bottom half of the case there. Remove move it out the case, and then deal with these flat flexes. You know, you can see here that it will be super easy to get this in here now, but it's incredibly difficult if you try and do it whilst it's in the shell. And the other thing to note, can you see down here, when you're lifting it out like that, just be careful, don't get your hands under the power supply, because you're going to get a potentially lethal electric shock from the caps and things there. So that's one word of warning when you get it out. Put your hands into the bay here, and if you can, you know, just try and hold the metal bit here rather than getting your hands under the PSU as you lift it out. These buttons are terrible. I'm getting flashbacks of that CPC actually. So there we go, buttons all cleaned up. So you can see how this goes back in there. It just goes like that and then pushes down. To get it out to start with, you just put your finger under there, just lift it up. So you can see it's super easy if you just hold the bottom part of this case up like that, lay it flat here and just hold the two together with your right hand, unclip the drive there so you can lift the drive up, and it just gives you a bit of access here to put this back in. And like I say, doing it this way, it's super easy. If you do it any other way than that, you will be absolutely tearing your hair out with stress. Just clip the drive back and then just carefully hold the two. Well, you just put the unit flat like that, you know, just to make sure you're not stressing the ribbon pulling it back out. At this point, we can now just carefully clip it back in there and start to reassemble it. So then what we'll do is hold it from the inside of the bay, just hold it up a bit, you know, be careful of the ribbon on the right there, and just slide it in this way here, like this. You know, hopefully it'll fit. Yeah, that seems to be in. So then we can just lift the lid carefully, and you have to hinge the front, that's the way it works, over the drive and over the flaps and things. And as you can see, that looks pretty good actually. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. So we'll just turn it over and get the screws back in on the underside. So yeah, you can't go wrong with the screw lengths on these. I'll show you. If you try and put one like that there, that's crazy. There's no way that's going to fit. So and if you get them in the right slots, these long ones, let's say, yeah, you'll have about 1 centimetre clearance, so you know that that's going to be the right slot there. Now one of these posts has been epoxied, so I need to be careful. And the other thing I would say is don't over tighten these, just tighten them until it feels like you've got a tiny bit of resistance there, like it's optimal points. Don't over tighten them because the ABS plastic will break. So I'm guessing we're going to have a few more full length ones yet in the middle here. That one's going to be full length as well, I think. Yeah. And just make sure this back piece here is clipped in okay, because I just had to unscrew the screws there because it wasn't actually, I was overlapping. And you can see the top was previously damaged there before, you know, we had a bit missing, but it's not a problem. I could always clean that up with some IPA because it's got some sticky stuff where the original warranty seal would have been. So I stuck the first foot on there. Some of these are rubber, some of them are plastic. I think that was another rubber one. Yeah, so the rubber ones go in the corners to act as 4 feet, and then the plastic ones in the other positions, I think. I don't think there's 6 rubber ones. No, there aren't. Now the nice thing is, because I got this other case with this, and the seller included some of these plastic bungs and things, so the one I had missing I should have a replacement for. Yeah, we've got 1 rubber foot missing, I think. So let me just check what came with the other one. Yeah, that one. That one I think is rubber. Let's give it a clean because it's a bit dirty. Yeah, there we go. And we'll give those corner feet a clean actually. The IPA will leave a bit of residue, but we'll get some back to black on there, and it will soak into the plastic. Because that's what happens when you put the IPA on there. It dries the plastic out. That's why black plastics, when you get IPA on, can go a kind of, can you see it's a patchy sort of colour. The Xboxes do that quite a bit as well. But the key really is, let's say, that these plastics usually have a certain amount of silicon in them, I think, from the factory. So if you just spray some back to black on there, and then just wipe over it, you'll see, you know, that plastic is now okay. It's not dried out like it was before. And you know what, the front is 1,000 times better. Just look at that now. You can just about see, you know, there's some damage here. It's hardly visible. And once it's, you know, it's just sat on the floor and stuff there, you wouldn't be able to see that at all. That looks fantastic. So I'll connect it all up now and we'll give it a try. So I've got it all connected up there. As you can see, the power light's on there. Let's switch it on. So sorry there's a bit of a reflection there, but as you can see that's working. I'd be interested to know if you've got any experience actually. Just watch as the screen changes. See that there? You get those little bands. I've seen that before. I've seen that before on PS2s. I think I've seen it on PS1s as well. You saw a red block there. Just as it changes, see there? It's like when it changes screen modes or something, like resolutions. So, you know, the games all work perfectly fine, but it's just something I've noticed, and I don't know whether it's something to do with specific revisions of the PS2, maybe a bug, an early bug, that might have got fixed by the time they got to the Slim. I don't remember my Slim doing that. It could do, I don't know. But the games, like I said, they work perfectly. It's not like there's a graphics chip issue or problems with the RAM or anything like that. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with this system. It's behaving really well. The fan's nice and quiet now as well, and it's just super clean. So a quick look at what I got with this. The cases need cleaning up. I just use a bit of IPA. You know, you can get labels and things off if you wanted to with a bit of IPA. And you know, when they go a bit dull, you can use that Meguiar's Plastex, and it, you know, makes it go transparent again. You can see some labels and things there, but I will clean this up later. It's not really that interesting to show in this video. So I've got Grand Theft Auto San Andreas gun, and I'll show you. You know, the discs on these, they're all absolutely perfect. There's not a mark on them at all. They're good as new, and with manuals. Everyone's got the manuals and warranty cards and all that sort of stuff. Copy of Gun. Never played that. It's like a cowboy type game. Again, perfect condition. A1. True Crime. The box is a bit damaged on that one. It's got like a crease there, but again they'll clean up quite well. And again, box complete, perfect, you know, condition of the disc. And finally, Manhunt. Yeah, same again, boxed complete. So I guess there are also a few valuable lessons learned from doing this that may help someone else in future. Now you can see, you know, why I want to change this, because it just looks an absolute eyesore here. You know, the super glue there, wasn't happy with that. And it's just not gone together, you know, super well, you know. So what I would say is, look at the epoxy there, you know, it's just a mess. What I would say is I could have done a better job, I think, of this on reflection. What I should have done is, piece by piece, you know, got a piece in there, held it in place, and then used the soldering iron on the inside to actually just melt the plastic in a few places to join it back up, because then you wouldn't have any of the seams from the super glue, wouldn't be leaking over, and I could have just bit by bit, piece by piece, done that and used the iron, you know, including up here. This was super hard to do because it just doesn't stay in place while it's gluing, whereas if I held each piece, you know, just hold it and then just, like I say, touch the iron just to melt the pieces there, I guarantee I would have got a good join, certainly on the inside, and it would have been almost seamless. You know, this bit here is a good example. You see, you know, it's like it just needs pressing in like that. Now if I heated that on the inside now, that would stay there. We certainly wouldn't have had the overhang there with the super glue, and this whole area would have just fitted together a lot better. So that's one thing I would say. Now the posts on the inside, the epoxy, as you can see, works really well. So the epoxies are okay for things like that, but anything where it's going to potentially leak through, I would steer clear of super glue and epoxy. And I would go with the whole approach of trying to melt, you know, just very carefully using a soldering iron. Bear in mind, you want a well ventilated room. You could do with a fan or something nearby, because the plastic, you know, the fumes and things that come off could be toxic. So I'm not suggesting that you know, that's what you should do, but that's what I would do personally in a well ventilated room, and just make sure that I've got good airflow, you know, to make sure I don't breathe any of the fumes and while I'm doing that. But I think that's how this could have been improved. So the other thing worth talking about while we're here are the pots on the laser. If you're going to swap out the laser on the new one, just make sure that these pots are set in approximately the same position as the old laser, assuming that no one's tinkered with those on the old laser. And you know, you could measure from the top, you know, each of those top sides there, the pot, to the centre common rail there, just write down the resistance. Typically you can have a short one way on one of these, you know, between one of those pair there on each side and the bottom one, but the other side you should have a resistance. Just write those down, and let's say do the same thing on your old optical pickup, compare them, and adjust on the you know, the new one to the same settings as the old one, and you'll be in approximate, you know, the right area there for it to work okay. So you can see this is a KHS 400C. Originally, I think mine's got a KHS 400B, and apparently this is interchangeable. But I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure whether you need to do some sort of tweak. I've seen some sort of utility or something you need to run, you know, unlock the thing using McBoot first, and you run a bit of homebrew to tweak the laser settings within the firmware on the PS2. But that might only be required to get it working, you know, totally optimal. I think from what I've read, you can just literally just swap this out and it should just work without any issues. I'm just not sure how long it would last without doing that that tweak there to adjust, let's say, the laser settings. I'm not sure if it's a voltage thing or what. And I would guess that little solder blob there, can you see it? That's the ESD anti-static protection blob. So, you know, you need to remove that before you fit it in the carriage. And in fact, someone on one of my videos pointed out the best way to do it is to fit the carriage and then, you know, remove that ESD blob. My point there would be that's pretty much near impossible. You know, it's very hard because the laser's going to be facing this way up in the drive, so you then can't access the underneath there. You need to take the drive out, slide the carriage all the way down to where you can access it to remove that solder blob. But that's, you know, kind of a better way of doing it. You know, you've got less risk of doing it that way. But to be honest, as long as you know, are careful and, you know, you wear an ESD wrist strap while you handle something like this, it's safe to just desolder that, then stick it in the carriage, you know, and assemble the unit. So the other thing worth showing you, and I did take this to pieces again just to show you this, if I press the eject button, just get it to eject the disc here, yeah, disconnect the power. So you can see these two screws here. If you remove these two screws, those bars just come straight out, the optical pickup lifts out, and you can also then flip the optical pickup over to disconnect the ribbon here. So I would suggest that when you take one of these apart, if you know you're planning on taking the drive out, I would do that right at the start before you've even taken the chassis out of the case. Just eject it to start with, and then the first thing, you know, take the lid off the top of the drive here, remove these two screws, the bars will come out, the head assembly here will lift up, and you can disconnect the flat flex from underneath it, and that just makes it super easy, because the side ones, you know, the ones on the side that go down here, the other ribbons, 3 or 4 ribbons there, those are easy to do once you know, put your hand in the bay here and lift the whole thing out. So it's dead easy. But I think before you can lift it out, you need to remove the screws down here. I think there's just 1 or 2, and the 2 on the front. So I've been trying to think of what to stick as a label on this, and as I say, I've just had nose surgery, broken nose, and one of the first things I thought was actually about watching this film after I came out of surgery. I really wanted to watch this, and Vinnie Jones, he was in the news, wasn't he? He broke someone's nose a few years back, and I'm sure, being an ex-footballer, his nose will have been broken a number of times, and he's kind of the person you would think to do with breaking noses. You know, he's kind of plays that character in a lot of the things he's in. He's a nice guy, but you know, he comes across as a bit of a hard guy. So I figured PlayStation 2, you know, the whole emotion engine there, and you could argue at the point where the controller goes in here, it's kind of suffered a broken nose.
There is one more thing. It's been emotional.
So I'll just get a bit of IPA on there. I can put some silicone on that in a sec. Just hold the stick, but yeah, it has been emotional. It's turned up broken when it should have been perfect. It should have, you know, it was in absolute A1 condition before it went in transit. And I figured, like I say, it's had a broken nose. I had a broken nose. The whole emotion engine thing, yeah, it's been emotional. So hopefully you found that interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.